FK Consulting and Agent Aid presents. Good day, and welcome to this chapter regarding mandatory disclosure. The Property Practitioners Act has established a mandatory disclosure to accompany all transactions in the prescribed form as per the regulations. This section is intended to assist property practitioners in explaining the importance of the disclosure form to consumers. Section 67 of the Property Practitioners Act 19 of 2022 reads as follows. 13.1. A property practitioner must, 12.1, not accept a mandate unless the seller or lessor of the property has provided him or her with a fully completed and signed mandatory disclosure in the prescribed form. And 13.1.2, provide a copy of the completed mandatory disclosure form to a prospective purchaser or lessee who intends to make an offer for the purchase or lease of a property. 13.2. The completed mandatory disclosure form, signed by all relevant parties, must be attached to any agreement for the sale or lease of a property and forms an integral part of that agreement. But if such a disclosure form was not completed, signed, or attached, the agreement must be interpreted as if no defects or deficiencies of the property were disclosed to the purchaser. 13.3. A property practitioner who fails to comply with subsection 1 may be held liable by an affected consumer. 4. Nothing in this section prevents the authority from taking action against a property practitioner or imposing an appropriate sanction. 13.5. Nothing in this section prevents a consumer, for his or her own account, from undertaking a property inspection to confirm the state of the property before finalizing the transaction. Why is the mandatory disclosure important? The mandatory disclosure helps protect consumers and property practitioners from legal liability. If, for example, a client claims the roof leaking was not disclosed prior to the transaction conclusion, and they want to cancel the transaction because of this, if there is a signed disclosure form which indicates that the roof is leaking, the seller will be protected from the contract being cancelled because of this, and the property practitioner will be protected from liability as well. The mandatory disclosure was put in place as a consumer protection measure, but as can be seen from the example below, the disclosure protects the property practitioner as well. It is important to note that the mandatory disclosure form must be completed and signed prior to the mandate and sale agreement, as it must be presented to prospective buyers or lessees when they view the property. The property practitioners regulatory authority has provided the most basic template for the mandatory disclosure in the regulations. This template may be expanded upon, but the questions as set out by the regulations must be present on the form. For an example of the immovable property condition report in relation to the sale of any immovable property, you are referred to the relevant section in the electronic copy of your booklet. Definitions. In this form, A, to be aware, means to have actual notice or knowledge of a certain fact or state of affairs, and B, defect means any condition, whether latent or patent, that would or could have a significant deleterious or adverse impact on or affect the value of the property, that would or could significantly impair or impact upon the health or safety of any future occupants of the property, or that, if not repaired, removed, or replaced, would or could significantly shorten or adversely affect the expected normal lifespan of the property. Disclosure of information. The owner of the property discloses the information hereunder in the full knowledge that, even though this is not to be construed as a warranty, prospective purchasers of the property may rely on such information when deciding whether, and on what terms, to purchase the property. The owner hereby authorizes the appointed property practitioner marketing the property that is for sale to provide a copy of this statement and to disclose any information contained in this statement to any person in connection with any actual or anticipated sale of the property. Provision of additional information. The owner represents that, to the best of his or her knowledge, the responses to the statements in respect of the property contained herein have been accurately noted as yes, no, or not applicable. Should the owner have responded to any of the statements with a yes, the owner shall be obliged to provide, in the additional information area of this form, a full explanation as to the response to the statement concerned. Statements in connection with property. This image is just an example of the disclosure document, and we refer you to your electronic booklet for the actual document. Owner certification. The owner hereby certifies that the information provided in this report is, to the best of the owner's knowledge and belief, true and correct, as at the date when the owner signs this report. Certification by person supplying information. If a person other than the owner of the property provides the required information, that person must certify that he or she is duly authorized by the owner to supply the information and that he or she has supplied the correct information on which the owner relied for the purposes of this report, and in addition, that the information contained herein is, to the best of that person's knowledge and belief, true and correct as at the date on which that person signs this report. Notice regarding advice or inspections. Both the owner as well as potential buyers of the property may wish to obtain professional advice or to undertake a professional inspection of the property. Under such circumstances, adequate provisions must be contained in any agreement of sale to be concluded between the parties pertaining to the obtaining of any such professional advice or the conducting of required inspections or the disclosure of defects or the making of required warranties. Buyer's acknowledgement. The prospective buyer acknowledges that he or she has been informed that professional expertise or technical skill and knowledge may be required to detect defects in and non-compliant aspects concerning the property. The prospective buyer acknowledges receipt of a copy of this statement. This disclosure document must be signed by the seller, the purchaser, as well as the property practitioner. This online learning experience was delivered to you by ETD College. Thank you for attending. We will see you in the next lesson.